Good morning, good evening, everyone. It's so good to see all of your beautiful faces. And I hope wherever you are in the world that you're having either a wonderful spring or a wonderful autumn. We in Nancy, France at the moment, and I've just been saying to Cynthia, it's amazing, beautiful. We in an apartment here with a balcony, and when you look out over the houses below us, it actually feels like you're in Lisbon, Portugal. So it's a really funny, interesting look. So we have Christine Yip here today, a Circle of Excellence Gold client, a dear friend of ours. And I just quickly want to do an introduction for Christine. Christine is into engineering and infrastructure. She's Asia Pacific's expansion expert, founder and mentor of the Performance Optimization Strategist. Now, Christine provides specialized business advisory services to organizations navigating global expansion with particular expertise in Asia Pacific markets. So she knows how to get you in there. Her advisory practice focuses on 4 key areas. She's into strategic global expansion, into leadership coaching through critical growth phases, which is important because growing too fast is a problem as well, isn't it, Christine? Recruitment and specialist technical talent and organizational performance optimization. So she's got extensive experience working across New Zealand, Australia, and Asia to help leaders overcome cross-cultural challenges and build high-performing teams and implement scalable processes that drive sustainable growth. So if you want to expand, if you want to grow, if you want to scale, Christine Yip is the person to talk to. She's the author of Power Up, which is about how to improve productivity and innovation and power up your sustainability. And then she is an advisory board certified chair and was awarded the top 50 CIO New Zealand in 2020. Christine, this is enough from me. It's a great honor to have you here today. We're super excited. Christine's going to be chatting to us for probably the next 35 to 40 minutes. Then we're going to close that up and leave it open for you for questions. So if you have any questions as she speaks, please jot them down and we'll get them to answer that for us. Okay, Christine, over to you. It's a privilege to have you here with us today.
Thank you very much, Landy, and really lovely to see all of you here. I'd like to have a conversation and share some of my experience and some of my thinking. I hope that this is going to be a session for us to have a conversation at the end. And I know the Circle of Excellence group, we are conscious leader. We always want to drive positivity and sustainability. And I hope today's conversation is going to, help us bounce some idea, make connections, and see where we can connect and maybe collaborate somehow. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Just a second. Okay, so I hope you get to see my screen. Okay, good, wonderful, that's great. Yeah. This is a bit of myself. I think, well, Landy already introduced me, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. Other than all the growth stuff, I really love being innovative. So I've been through a number of hackathons. For those who don't know what hackathons are, those you stuck in the room in the weekend, but you create new stuff, you meet people, and you generate a solution. We have a very short time here. However, I love to bounce ideas together, and maybe together as a group, as a community, we can always generate some new idea, new thought, and create a better world. Some of my past projects that I've actually, other than the project management work, I have got a bit of experience in infrastructure, government infrastructure, a bit of the higher education eventually as well. Government project is something that I've worked in quite in my past and also currently a little bit. So, yeah. So without going into too much of my professional world, this is a picture that I don't know how many of you may look at and thought, oh, I know where that is. How many of you actually know this place and know where this is? So I'm just going to open the chat box on the side as well, just so that I can also have a conversation while we may be talking in the chat box.
Is that Hong
Um,
Kong?
yes, it is. That's right. I thought, yeah, it's easier to talk about a life story with picture rather than, all this wording and looking at my face only. And I really want you to feel and experience it a little bit as if you were with me in the middle of the city, traveling with me, and you see, like, I grew up in this sort of environment. This is where I grew up. That's where I came from. I come from Hong Kong originally, and it's a hectic, vibrant. It's a city full of like it's a very fast pace. Okay, and well, growing up in that sort of city, I don't generally notice much different before I go anywhere, and just a matter of everyone live the same way. We walk very fast. Except that life took a turn. And when I was about 16, 17, I took on an adventure. As a youngster, I decided that I want to go on to an exchange student program. And that took me, as the arrow show, to the other side of the world. Now, in New Zealand, we're stepping into spring. I'm hoping that the weather is going to get warmer, we get more sunlight. The other side of the world where I originally came from is stepping into more of winter time. So it's getting colder. So you can imagine, and I know that we've got a global audience here, you can understand the differences of the climate, and we completely opposite. And in New Zealand, I didn't go to the very big city. What happened was I actually landed in a place, and now this is the map of New Zealand, North Island, as shown. And on this map, there's a little place here between Lake Taupo and Rotorua. Now, this is a very rural location. Auckland is the biggest city, and even the biggest city of New Zealand. We are only talking about 1 million people. So Hong Kong, on the other hand, we have at the time was 7 million people in a tiny little dot on the world map. Other than well, I didn't land in Auckland. I landed in a tiny little country place, which means from this to this. Needless to say, it did bring somewhat a major culture shock. And that was actually part of my experience of experience the different cultural perspective. And I, at the time, wasn't so comfortable. I look back and realized it was a huge part of my growth. So despite the culture shock, it was a growth phase for me. After this tiny little city, this is a picture that of a city that I subsequently moved to study university. And I'm actually showing you as if like, I'm taking you to around New Zealand. This is actually Wellington, the capital of New Zealand. So you see that on a sunny good day, Wellington is a fabulous place, despite that usually it gets very windy. And I stayed there for over 4 years, did my degree, and learned a few new things. And the reality is, after university, when you're going into a workplace, into the corporate world, and experiencing business, experiencing the being in a job, being in an organization, it was actually a bit of roller coaster. The reason I said that is that when you were growing up, when you were learning all these management and all this best practice, actually, graduation was good. I mean, that was the ideal picture. I went to Auckland, did more work, and I was heavily involved in project implementation. And partly the roller coaster was there was actually a lot going on in organization. When it comes to project management, when it comes to expansion, when it comes to doing something new, there's all this red tape. As you can see, there's compliance, there's processes, there's a data issue, and there's the government, and particularly around decision making. There are a lot involved that actually it was not, I don't think it was taught at school. And as I was growing with the organization, it's starting to sink in. I started to really absorb and learn what really matter when it comes to actually delivering growth and outcome. And I'm a very driven person, but I think, as we can imagine, in organization, quite often there are all these different agenda, priority, and also I don't know how many of you recognize this picture. I actually tested it with other group of audiences, and because some of the people have no background in agriculture, so some of the people don't know what these are. Actually, to introduce it is actually as an equipment called, yes, it's a tank, and we quite often call it silo. And it is such a useful piece of equipment and infrastructure for agriculture, for storage, for you need to have space that you actually you store and distribute certain product, well, maize or grain or farm animals, feed, all that sort of thing. In this particular context, in this particular picture, I think it make a lot of sense, right? We need to have certain equipment and it need to only hold certain type of stuff storage. Silo, on the other hand, in organizations, as I learned, it's not ideal. And particularly when an organization and in a business, we were really trying to move to do something different, something new. We need to work closer together, not so far apart. And the silo culture was something that as someone that came from a place where we were happy to share ideas, possibly me, efficiency being such an important thing in a fast-paced city like Hong Kong, I had realized my difference has been huge when it comes to looking at how do we get the most of efficiency and productivity. And unfortunately, silo is something that we see, not just in New Zealand, but in a number of organizations worldwide. So as quick, you can imagine there's a bit of the ceiling there. Yeah, there has been a bit of the, okay, well, I do need to break the ceiling. And that was when I thought, oh, well, maybe I will look out and maybe I'll do some innovation. And this was one of the competitive innovation competition hackathon, where all of these people, we were all strangers. We got together for a weekend and we provide a solution at the end of the weekend and we won. It just shows how important it is when it comes to breaking some status quo, when it comes to working together, having a vision, having a message that connect us makes a huge difference. We were stranger on Friday. By end of the Sunday, we were a team. We won. We want to drive changes. And subsequently, I still do a lot of community involvement and work because I see that our the reason we are here, we are not just here to do business. I want to see greater impact, and the growth is not just for the profit. How do we benefit people? How do we benefit the planet? And these are something that I quite often think about when it comes to talking about growth, having conversation about growth. How do we keep it sustainable? Um, Wow, the world got cancelled. And that was, I think we all experienced that somewhat in the last few years ago. And that had really thrown me into a sort of space where I reflected quite a bit myself on what life is about and all the work that I have been working in the government, in the community, my identity. What were these all about? And I really reflected on the experience that I have got. And at the end of it, I did some writing and I did some research and I had some thought about how the world is shifting. And I see the paradigm shift that is actually happening right now. And I think this is a model that I create as part of more an academic paper. However, these are some that observation and qualitative research that maybe you all resonate as well. I see that the older business and older generation, their style, they're just like bread that has gone old and cold and hard. Nobody want to eat them anymore. There's all this centralized, hierarchical. There's just a lot of standard, a lot of red tape. Things are so static, things are just so set in their way. It was so old-fashioned with technology as well. Like with business and organization, you've got a technology, and that means that, hey, my technology going to trump everything. We don't need to think about people. And in terms of sustainability, they only really want to care about themselves. Or I look after my backyard, and that's all I care, right? And it's gradually shifting to organization that may be a bit more appetizable, like a piece of bread that may be more fresh, okay? And that means that when it comes to, the structure, there's a bit more sponginess, there's a bit more elastic, and there's the network structure that we may have been seeing already in our work and observation. Um, these organizations are quite often more value driven, and that value drive quality and drive the focus on creating service that really suit the market. There's more agility, more about care about people, more about people centric in the organization process, and that really means that it help look after the people a bit more, and in return it also look after the planet a bit more. These specific term in terms of like ESG is the environmental, social and governance, and these are terms that scope one are more just you look after yourself. Scope two, you extend a bit more to your subsidiary, and you are extending to looking after the critical input. You try your best to look after that. However, at this point, you're still looking after yours only, right? And so while this is a step forward, and a lot of organizations already adopted to this level of freshness or fresh thinking, I see that we are seeing more of the organization that thinking even further, which is what I call ultra fresh. Okay, so like bread that fresh out of the oven. So okay, if you've got a piece of bread if you've got baking that's been baked since this morning, it's lovely. It stay fresh for a while. But if you want to be really attractive, if your organization trying to raise capital, if you want to grow, if you want to connect to a new different market, ultra fresh is going to be more attractive, obviously, where decentralized network of tribe. Quite often is the organization structure. Nothing needs to so set in stone, and there's more creativity. People generally collaborate much more within the organization in this way because there's nothing really require a boss to tell you what to do, and no boss need to give order, and there's the autonomy that keep the organization fresh and keep the service fresh. We're seeing that data-driven approach become some of these ultra-fresh organization approach. So these business, they don't just do guesswork. There's all this sort of data. And in light of these days, we have got AI, we've got so much technology. If you haven't already got the fact-based data within the organization, is of course not as easy to grow and get into all these exciting opportunity. Of course, with the ultra fresh, there's more elastic, there's more the fresh thinking, and it's also not just being agile, but actually expandable, scalable, and in a way that's suiting its own growth path. In terms of technology, we're talking about a bit more blended human robotic. We're seeing technology going accelerating at a level that we thought we've seen technology acceleration during the pandemic and all that. This is actually growing even further with AI. It's unbelievable. And how do we tap into this aspect of the growth, right? In terms of the planet, it really does drive the entire upstream and downstream. So we're talking about, we do care about the overall end-to-end. Okay, what may be the input that keep us sustainable? But however, who are the contractor and how are they looking after our planet? So these are some of the pointer, and these are some of the paradigm shift that I'm seeing. And I thought it would be lovely to share and see some of your thought. And the reason why I talk about in this particular session, we talk about productive impact, is I just through this sort of thinking and reflection, I just wonder how can we be more productive and impactful? Yeah, there's so much going on with technology, and people are very short of time, very short on attention span. There's a lot going on in their life. How can we all be more productive? And I did a bit more thinking, and I think one of the probably more important thing is leadership. And impactful leadership is something that I've been pondering and thinking what would impactful leader look like? And I think I have, from my observation, and maybe you agree, and maybe you have seen some, that some leaders or managers, generally, if they are in a more conflicting mode, in the direction, maybe they're slightly confused. There's different level of energy. You don't see them being very proactive. And of course, at this level, there's not a lot of security and there's no happiness or joy. And so that means that while they're really trying to do a good job, they're trying to maybe thinking about how could they be more impactful. It's not working. It's mostly just firefighting, right? And I've seen a bit of that in the organization and in the business that I work with. And this is not a good place to be. I think a better level up in terms of the leadership ladder is getting into a bit more a curiosity as a leader. And sometimes at this level, you're over the firefighting, but it still has the very tiring energy. And the security level, probably you've seen leaders that feel okay, but they're not completely feeling very secure about their position, their job, their prospect. And of course, at this level, it's just really, very meh. And I think there are steps that we can take forward and we can step up as leader. And I found that going through the process and grow to be more confident and eventually growing to be more courageous. And that lead to the very different energetic level with greater security. And this security isn't so much of the whatever position, whatever status that you've earned, but there's almost a bit more of the inner security and joy of a courageous leader who can be proactive and who's leading with productivity and impact. And I also have in mind thinking, what would that look like when it comes to really delivering impactful leadership? So this is a model that I have put in my book, and it is a bit of actually driven from Chinese medicine method, where you got to start with at the bottom of the step. You got to start with knowing, observing, and with the step that you take, and sometimes it take longer, sometimes it's very quick because you're so experienced as a leader. You can find the right method to actually deliver the change, deliver the growth and the impact. And yeah, I think a lot of all of that I talk about really has to come from the heart. I'm a person that I just really need to feel my heart and the gut and the mind are all aligned, and so that I really anchor into that awareness space. And there's something that I feel like is needed as the part of the conversation. I feel like that's not enough to talk about the technical thing. I think we have seen enough technical tool and technology. It needs to come together with who we are and our self-awareness. Um, this is also anchored into a bit of the philosophy. I particularly love this quote that I found in one of the published journal. Health, life, and good living are a complex, interdependent whole that's part of interconnected relational networks of human communities, social relations, and relations with Mother Earth. I have strong belief in that, and I want to champion that more as part of the growth conversation. And as part of it, I have sort of thought about what are the key elements that may be useful when it comes to implementing the growth, driving some of the impact. And so these are some of the key elements. We're not going to go into too much further into all of these individual elements. I'll quickly go through because we don't have a lot of time. But I'd like us to, imagine when we actually talk about growth, we're not just talking about dollar value. We're not just talking about what technology we use. Actually, we can really talk about growth being fun, growth being free, being focused, and we have got passion that really drive it. Actually, what I mean about free is that's kind of free in your mind. So I think it connect back to the mindfulness practice as well. That's the emotional level. One part of it is I've seen business and organization, and sometimes it's a business owner, right? If you don't feel you've got a level of freedom and you don't have the level of free from some of the heavy burden, emotional burden sometimes in your business and your life experience, it can really challenge you to go into the growth phase. And won't go into too much of that, but I think that also anchor into what I talk about into self-awareness and the mindset as well. As one part of it, I think that being free can be we can actually use the lean principles. Partly, I particularly like this part where the lean 5S, we've got the Japanese philosophy: sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain. And we know how we tidy up our own house, tidy up our environment, we get that sort of freeing experience and feeling. I think it's very similarly in our own mind, and also in a business context, it's so important to sort it. I have recently worked with a client that we have got a business that potentially has got global growth potential, right? And there's so much idea. The technology is already there, but it was just not quite sorted. So a bit of facilitated conversation means that the two different founder can really bring out what they have been, like sort of building up on the chest for so long. And, we can just sort it all out, talk about what exactly the growth path, what they have in mind as a vision. So then together as the founder, they share one vision. And actually, we may be tapping into like $1 billion global opportunity. Before we talk about it, it wasn't obvious. Now it became something that is really clear because we just clear all of these funny idea, all of this different thinking, and now we are clear and we're ready to go. I will go into fun as well. I think I'm not going to dictate what fun look like. Everyone have got your fun activity. If you do have some sort of go-to fun activity, I would invite you to share with me, even in our conversation later. Landy would know that I'm actually not that good in this space, and funny that I've got this as one key element. So it's definitely something that I want to crowdsource. So yeah, I think this is a path that I'm also seeing in my organization change and growth sort of facilitation. That actually, if it's fun, it makes a huge difference. And it's good that I'm only facilitating the conversation and giving advice. So that means that hey, different business owner, different founder, different organization, their fun is very different. When in engineering and infrastructure, the fun may be doing the math, but it's not my kind of fun. And it's okay. And you're free to choose, okay? So I think this is something that, hey, we need to talk a bit more when it comes to, hey, what do we want the future look like? There's more fun things in the culture space. I won't go into that too much. The fire, I did look at a couple more entrepreneur example. The passion, the kind of gut feeling that you just love what you do is so infectious, it's so contagious, and it's something that we cannot ignore. The focus part is, of course, important. We're looking at, getting to a certain level in terms of impact, in terms of business outcome, and maybe for the business owner, for the leaders as well. Okay, so focusing what we can, what we can drive. In this particular research paper that I did, these are actually extract from the research paper. I'm actually looking at things like, industrial revolution, how technology can help people and organization so that we can change fast. And actually, one of the things that I also touch on is the process maturity. And I think I will elaborate a bit more here. In terms of different business, different people, in terms of being productive, I think that a key element to drive focus is actually having a bit of process, okay? And in the beginning of any work that need to be done in an organization, maybe it's a very early day. So everyone trying to get a feel of what the process might look like. In the beginning of, let's say, cooking a dinner, if you are very new cook and you're learning a new recipe, of course, you do have got a bit messy kitchen, and it's understandable. The ingredients may be everywhere, so it's probably in the space of you're trying to innovate, but it's still early days. The process of the way we work is probably not very mature. So this space, maybe the team clash a little bit, maybe the kitchen is a little bit too crowded, but it's okay. The next thing is we want to, as a team, as an organization, if you do really want to tap into the growth path, it would be important. And I think it's important to have a bit more maturity in the organization on the team process. And when you get so comfortable, however, it's likely to lead to complacent, because it's the same recipe. You cook it every week. You just know from your heart. So in that case, it's just the same. In this particular space, you've got very mature processes, but maybe not very innovative. And it's okay for a while, until you want to really tap into the growth path. And as I personally found, I do need to look at what may be the technology. How do we do things differently? And it does actually lead us to a bit more innovation that is useful, okay? And it become new, so that's when process maturity may be still a bit low, but it's actually useful. I would love organization and team to get into this eureka space where there's so much innovation and the process are so mature. You can tap into the latest technology, you can tap into the next big thing, and this is the moment where it's eureka, just do so well with so much impact from the work that you do. So I hope that this talk and conversation is useful, and together I really hope that we can generate some wave, make some impact, and maybe together we can shift it out.
Christine, thank you so much. That was incredibly useful. I love your concepts of, bringing Chinese medicine principles into, getting an organization to build more of, sustainable and scalable processes. Who is this Shoukei Matsumoto guy? I love the sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain. Who's he? Can you maybe tell us a bit more about him?
This is actually a very well-known lean manufacturing principle. Yeah. So for a long time, it is, I think for a very long time, I think it's only already been like maybe a couple of 100 years ago. It's actually driven a bit from a bit of Buddhism philosophy as well. Yeah.
Wow, fascinating. Has he written any books? Is he the author of any book, or I'll find him I'll find him online, right?
Yes, that's right. There are a number of books, and also I think one part of it is I think this particular 5S model has been basically over the quality manufacturing space, total quality management as well. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Now, Christine, what I love about your approach and, talking about this Shoukei Matsumoto and bringing some of the Chinese medicine principles and free fund focus point into it, is that you're bringing a lot of knowledge from the East while operating in the West at the moment. That's a very, very, unique place to be. And I'm trying to look on this call and check who, has a lot of experience with the East, and it doesn't look like too many. So I would love for you on this call now to please unmute yourself and ask Christine any questions, maybe relating to how to implement it in your business, or maybe you have a challenge at the moment about you having, processes that's complacent, and you just can't get to the space where you can innovate and walk into the new era. Christine is here. Let's open this up for questioning. Anyone has a question?
Yeah, I have one. Christine, thank you very much for your presentation. I wonder, as a coach or a consultant, if I were to start to look into the Asian markets. So are there things that I should prepare or look for specifically?
I think one thing is Asian market relationship is so important. I can't emphasize enough that the different informal relationship has been such a big part, and also the culture of what we talk about, the Zen, who we are, and actually. It's interesting that sometimes, like when I look at the news, when I look at the business news in Hong Kong, we don't talk about it on the surface. But like for us, particularly conscious leader that in this group, you will find a lot of us that actually are very mindful of the energy, are connected with the different philosophy, and it's something that really does build the relationship. So I think you don't need to know everything. But I think, something that we talk about, the heart and mind and the 5S, quite useful philosophy length as a starting point. Is something that because a lot of Asian businesses quite often they rise up from manufacturing. So this kind of lingo can connect quite easily in a way, and it lead to greater conversation.
Yeah, Christine, I'm totally with you on that one. I'm full on with it. I'm a Feng Shui practitioner, so I blend the Feng Shui principles into the business. So and I'm just doing my new blueprint with Landy at the moment. So we were like messaging online, yes,
Another one.
we were totally with you on that one, and so absolutely love it, and it's so important. And I think it's becoming very clear that we need to bring the heart, we need to bring a lot more care, but on the same time the better energy, and balancing that yin and yang is so powerful, being able to create better harmony in businesses.
Exactly.
So
I agree
you.
completely. Thank you so much. It's lovely to connect. And yeah, I think it makes a difference. I think manufacturing has got its own challenge, and having come from that, I really understand it. And again, I think, regardless the sector, people are the more important thing, right? And I think in that space, when we connect as people, it makes a difference to, how much impact we can deliver and the growth that we can work on.
Absolutely. Well, I'll send you my blueprint, Christine, and then you can give me some feedback.
I would love some feedback from you on my one too.
Perfect. So here we got now a match made in heaven. So I would really highly recommend you to get actually on a Zoom call and take each other through your blueprint processes and compare notes on the type of clients you have versus the type of clients you want to have, and especially challenges you've had in your various industries, because there's no coincidences, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we got a beautiful heart there. Anyone who has questions for Christine? Right, so while you're thinking, Christine, you've been in our environment for quite some time now. I mean, you've been through, you're a Circle of Excellence Gold member, but now I want to talk a little bit more socially, because this cultural conversation in business is really interesting, and there's a huge market in the East that a lot of people on this call is not accessing. And there's a huge market from the East to the West that people are not accessing, and you sort of like the hanging bridge in the middle, which puts you in a very fascinating space. So, so you've been at our events, and you've seen a lot of still Western influence there. You've been to our Bali school, which was in Phuket, but you came to me and you were like, "Am I the only person?" What I was sort of hanging out with everyone from the West or whatever, which I think is just incredible. Pioneering of you, I mean, in many respects, Monica Chen is very similar to me, so, and I know you two know each other, but me and Monica especially have a lot of conversations about it, and she strangely always comments on the fact that she regards my mindset more as an Eastern mindset than a Western mindset, which becomes more confusing. But So when you sit at our events and you're looking at all this Western attendees and members, whatever, what do you look at and think to yourself, if you will only do this different, it will be easier for you to access the Asian market? What goes through your mind? You can openly share with the group because we really want to know.
Say, what was the question again?
You look at everyone in the group, for
Yes,
example,
yes,
and it's
yes, that's
lots
right.
of people from the West, and you go,
Yes,
you're not connecting with me, Christine Yip, from the East. If only you would do that different, I'll be
yes.
able to open up to you. And not only open up to you, I can do introductions for you. I have great clients that we can do projects together, but there's still this silo effect you're talking about. It's like, hi, you're Christine, gone, and you go, what's the bonding and the connecting not happening there? What's your recommendations for us? How do we crack that shell and start that bonding and conversation?
I think, yeah, the bonding conversation is, and I think that the experience of living in New Zealand really helps, and traveling really helps, because I think the reality is there are certain people like us, we do share similar value and wanting to drive positive impact, that the people who share similar value do naturally bond much easier, regardless what we look like, regardless of our culture background. On top of that, I think the cultural melting pot environment, the facilitated environment is quite lovely and it would be really helpful. And I sometimes facilitate that when I'm maybe the only woman in the all-male boardroom, or and sometimes it takes a bit of that initiative. It's nice to know when the other people in the room are also aware and also, have the dynamic that we can interact and, connect and bond and have the kind of proactiveness to do it together. I think that you really raise the level, to something else, right? And that is when, the project come together. That's when collaboration and the synergy that works really well with a couple of people, and I think these things makes a difference. But usually, I think for me, a key part is, I think individually, we need to have a wider perspective. And had I not moved away from Hong Kong, I didn't have the perspective. I would usually just go by my way, and that's the cultural lane that I had. It's a very different worldview, and there's no right or wrong, but it just means that it's just a little more difficult to bond. So it requires someone to step into their world and maybe connect and, sort of bring that kind of, togetherness together. Like what I was, Jeff's question about, how do we go into maybe Asian market and maybe a different, culture? And that is just a bit of that extra work that require. And yeah, once we connect at a humanity level, I think things just, it's just work.
So would you be open to people on this call actually connecting with you and asking you more about, the Asian culture? Because I mean, Asian culture is a big word, right? It's like Asian culture has got subsets, right? I mean, now we're going to go into Chinese, and we're going to go into Japanese, and we're going to go into South Korea, and we're going to go in, we're just going to, and then we're going into India, and then it's like, it's such a vast, the word Asia is so deceitful, isn't it? Because we talk about the West and the East in order to break the ice, but I mean, hello, in the West as well. I mean, I like to always talk about European culture, for example, because I'm a descendant from European culture, but I've had quite a few people in Europe now telling me, don't call me European, please. I'm Italian. Or don't call me European, I'm French, or don't call. So there's that really way in which we identify with our culture. So I would love for you on this call to connect with Christine and ask her more questions about the way she was raised and what's on and what's not. So Jeffrey said, well, if I want to enter the Asian culture, let's say you could take Jeffrey under your wing and you're going to sort of give her now a big speech, and say, Jeffrey, when you start dealing with the Asian culture, do not, under any circumstances, do the following 3 things because you'll be destroyed. What would be those 3 things? Where you go, please, Jeffrey, don't do that. It's not going to work, right?
Well, yeah, I think that's the thing, right? I think like as a blanket, Asians still have very many Asian, Europeans still have very many different style. Like I think just the free thing, sometimes is the kind of respectful tone is such an important thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, respecting the older people, the more, that certainly, I mean, I come from Asia. However, I'm pretty sure a lot of organizations still in the sort of old-fashioned, thinking
Yeah.
and way of working. And it's true. I mean,
Yep.
we just have to respect that is where they are at, and and that's okay.
It is what it is,
Whenever
yeah.
they're ready.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, you experience it all the time. You know the truth, right? It doesn't help with sugarcoat things, yeah? So respect, and especially respect for elders.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, respecting that. I think also that's the kind of I think respecting the cultural differences. So I just don't want to hear. I have had other people challenging. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Can you just do it? Can you
Yeah,
just do
yeah.
it?
Accept the traditions and the hierarchies, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, accepting the tradition, some of the ritual, you can understand more later, but if you can just be part of it, it's wonderful. I think these 2 are really big deal. And I guess that is the kind of just, really trying to immerse yourself into the cultural experience. So, do as the local do. You can't possibly speak all of the language. I can't either. However, it's interesting that I've actually, with the different culture, like, Indian, Korean, I actually, because of the cultural understanding, even though I wasn't speaking Korean, they thought I understood Korean because of the body language. Body language is such a big thing. Try to
Yeah.
observe it.
Yeah, and educate yourself. If you're going to go into another country or you're going to go there as a consultant or a speaker, gee, but just learn about the country. I can't tell you how many boards we sit on that we getting those people international and then they make fatal mistakes. I mean, you're not going to go and deal with a person in Japan and kiss them 3 times on their cheek at the first meeting, like they do in Europe. They'll freaking have a heart. You just don't do that. It's just disrespectful. So, and the way you dress and all those things. So, and yet it's one of the most life-altering experiences to get into other cultures and deal with other cultures. You've done it, right? It's expanded you, as you said. It's made you a better person. Is there any final questions you want to ask Christine, hoping you're actually going to check in with her and have a conversation about her life, about her customs, about the misunderstandings between the East and West, and see where you can share resources or ideas or philosophies, Any final questions for Christine before we jump off the call? Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. No, I think this is a wrap. Christine, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. It is wonderful. It's a wonderful privilege for us to have you in our midst. Because you teach us so much. We've touched now a little bit more on the culture, but Christine is absolutely brilliant with really pulling companies out of their comfort zone. And you can imagine how forward-thinking it is of her to do that, especially with her sharings about a lot of the traditions and the stuckness that you find in many organizations that's still very much in hierarchy, and you pull them towards innovation. So a conversation with her about culture will be very valuable, but also a conversation with her about, how you can grow your organization in a more sustainable and innovative way, especially where we are with technology today. Christine, thank you. I hope you have a wonderful evening. It's evening there where you are. Enjoy your upcoming spring, and thank you everyone for showing up today. We'll see you around. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to
Thank
talk.
you.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.